Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We have an amazing program for you, an amazing session for you today, as yesterday. Thank you for joining us on another day on the Elevate conference. My name is Dulmari Irizarry. I am the program coordinator for the Division of Institutional Equity and Inclusion for Connecticut College. Again, welcome everybody. I'm going to pass it to Maurice now.
All right, good morning again, everyone. So excited that we have so many guests, alumni, current students. We have staff, faculty, administration here, all to support some of our youngest camels, right? Some of our first years that will be presenting today. I just want to express how proud of you all I am. But before I even get into that, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Maurice Tyner. I am an alum of the college. Class of 2017, and I also serve as the director of race and ethnicity programs for the college. All right, a little bit of kind of logistics. So we're about to get ready to pass it over to our amazing student host, which is Hannah Gonzalez, which will introduce our panelists and our facilitators for today. If you have any questions, there will be a portion through which we will be able to kind of go through questions. So we just ask that you hold those as our presenters are going through and facilitating. And throughout the presentation, we'll drop the evaluation a couple times so that you all can kind of take notes as you all are going throughout this presentation. All right, enough from us. Let's pass it over to Hannah so we can get this started.
All right, good morning, everyone, for a third time, and welcome to day 2 of our Elevate conference. I'm Hannah, my pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a sophomore and I work as the Leadership Development Ambassador of Race and Ethnicity Programs. We all hope you were able to make it to some of our sessions yesterday, but we are so happy that you're here with us now for our session, POCA Unpacked. POCA, which stands for People of Color Alliance, is an upcoming affinity group on campus. POCA is a student organization dedicated to creating an intentionally intersectional space for students of color on a predominantly white campus. Today, we're joined by some of their leadership team. Might I add that they're all first years, which is absolutely amazing, who will share a bit of information about POCA's plans for the spring semester and beyond. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Lyndon Inglis, Junice Caminero, Leslie Villegas, and Francis Cesanaya. Take it away, y'all.
Thank you so much, Hannah, and thank you to the DIEI team for just letting us have this opportunity to put POCA on a display. As Hannah said, we are a group of first years, really trying to take a lead in changing the community at Con. So today, we're just gonna be discussing what POCA means to us and what we plan to do in the future, the spring semester and, further on. So I'm gonna share my screen, I think, and we're gonna get started. Okay, sorry. Here we go. So this is POCA Unpacked. We like to say that we represent diversity, inclusion, and transparency. 3 things that I can think we all agree are very important when it comes to just having a community. So I'm going to now pass it on to our Vice President, Francis, who's going to be sharing some important information about POCA. Francis?
Okay. Yeah, I was having trouble unmuting myself, but so this is our mission statement. Our mission is to create an environment of inclusivity for people of color to express their intersectionality through social, political, and artistic platforms. We unify all communities of color to share, learn, and relate to different cultures, experiences within our respective communities. So We've already started to uphold our mission statement through our Instagram, which is primarily communicating what we are doing with the rest of campus. And its other job is to educate. Education is the foundation to learning about different cultures, but it's also important to have firsthand knowledge, which is what we hope POCA will help provide. This is our executive board. So most of us, I think maybe all of us should be here today. So Lyndon is our president. I'm vice president. Junice is our secretary, one of our executive secretaries, sorry. Serena is another executive secretary. You guys should pretty much, I think we're all on campus, so you should be able to see us on campus. Leslie's also here today. She's our communications director, and Senya is our event coordinator, along with Ramon, who's our financial director, and Jassity, who's our event facilitator.
So what is our goal? Our goal is to basically bring together all people of color under one organization to celebrate and cultivate a greater sense of intersectionality and representation at CON, to embrace and learn from each other, as well as serve as a platform of education to the surrounding communities on campus, to create a safe space for those of color and allies to our communities to share experiences and relate to one another on a more inclusive level. So basically, like with POCA, we want to make sure that everyone can be represented, even if you felt like you've never been represented. And as somebody who comes from a Dominican side of my family, my mom is Dominican, my dad is more Black heavy. I'm someone who, if you saw me, you wouldn't necessarily be able to assume that on first glance. And I think that by having a space where no matter who you are or where you come from or how you look, you know that there's a place for you at CON for you to speak, regardless of what your background is, or rather how you identify as a person.
So recently, oh, hi, sorry. I'm Leslie. I'm the communications director, and I run social media and like making posters for whenever we have events, which still don't start, but they'll be in the making. So recently we started the POCA Perspective, which is where students can anonymously, or they can put their name and share their experiences at CON and tell, I guess, every other student. Thank you. We share with students our experiences at CON. It's, for me personally, it's a big change because I come from like predominantly Black and Latino or Latinx. I guess predominantly my schools were of that. So when I came here, it was sort of difficult to start talking to people. But getting to share with other people, you can see that you're not the only one that's struggling, or you're not the only one that's experiencing some things that are new to everybody. But I guess you can also learn from other people's experiences and how they handled it to see, well, what's the best way I can possibly handle the situation. These are some of our, some students put in these stories. So I'm gonna read the 3 that we have. The first one is from class of 2024, which is our class, and it says, as a freshman at CON, I've never personally experienced anything, but I can easily say that there's an obvious divide between the white and non-white people on campus. I think it's because many of us grow up in different ways that we can do, that they can do, that most of us can't relate to. So I think that's very true for the way that, well, let me backtrack. So for our Instagram, each week we talk about different topics that affect people of color or things that we can educate others on. And then we ask the perspectives of everybody else, similar to this. So we will be talking about educational backgrounds in the, we'll be talking about educational background this week, so that we can touch on this idea about how most of us can't relate because of our educational backgrounds or stuff like that. Our second one is also anonymous. It comes from class of 2022. Although I try to talk to white students in my classes, I don't seem to find anything in common with them, and I seem to feel like I'll annoy them, so I just talk about school. I see them outside of class, and I don't really say hi since they don't either. It's a weird way of interacting. Um, I guess it's something that happens to a lot of us, and because we can't find anything in common, we just decide to move aside and just keep on going with our day. Um, and then our last one is also anonymous. They can also choose not to put their class here. It has been awkward in all honesty. I sometimes feel as if the white students are staring at my friends and I when we walk together. My professors are constantly calling me by the names of other children of color in the classes, even though we look nothing alike. Often when parties are happening or people are hanging out, they will drive past with loud rap music blasting from their cars with the N-word and is present their vocabulary even though the car is filled with Caucasian people. I think that's a topic that we'll be talking about, the N-word, and how we'll have a whole discussion on that. But this is what POCA is about, talking about things that make us uncomfortable. Well, not us, but making other people uncomfortable. There can be points where things can be controversial, but it's something that we have to talk about as people of color, because if not when, and this is what POCA is about, having somewhere to talk about things that we need, and just giving each other a voice, no matter who you are, because sometimes you can feel underrepresented in any way. So yeah.
I just want to say before we continue that, you know, using POCA as a platform is what it's all about, using it as a platform to share the experiences of not only freshmen, but all class years, including incoming class years, about the experience that they've either had on campus or off campus. It's just about creating a sort of environment where we can all come together and really be unapologetically us. And that is what we're, you know, all about. So as I continue, we're going to be talking about invoking change and how we plan to do that. So we have some three, I would say, vague but basic steps about how we plan to invoke change on campus as well as the surrounding communities. So by unifying our different but familiar communities through much needed communication, educating each other about one another in order to further a loving embrace. And we also plan to look back and discuss what is necessary to look forward. I think the third one sums it all up in the sense that we have to really look at what we've done so far to get to where we are and continue on that path to create a larger sense of conversation. I know we have many great affinity groups already on campus, and for some it can be a bit daunting for a new one to come in, also led by a group of freshmen, so that can be another daunting thing. But we don't plan to step on any toes. We just plan to, you know, look at what these great affinity groups have done, you know, use that as a base for us and create a space that all, not only one demographic or community can come together, but all people of color, all non-POC as well, to learn from each other and to educate each other about culture and about our culture, what we've experienced, who we are, and just, again, be unapologetically us. So that's, and I think I'll be saying that a lot, but that is who we are. That's what we plan to be during the spring, and hopefully even until after we graduate from Con. So this is the end of our slides, but not the end of the session. We plan to open it up to everyone to just ask us questions about what we plan to do. But this is our email if you want to contact us. We'll be putting our Instagram and our link tree in the chat, so you can either be a part of the organization by putting your name on the contact list, or you can take part in our program, the POC Perspective that Leslie spoke about, to share your perspective and experiences of being a person of color, either on campus or just your community at home. So help us cultivate inclusion, not only at Con, but in general. And with that, I will stop sharing to open up questions. If you don't have any, that's perfectly fine. We can probably talk more about POCA all day. Yep, Dean McKnight.
Well, I just want to say thank you all for this presentation. Thank you for the effort you have already put into developing this new organization. It is super impressive, and we don't mean to keep harping on the point that you're all first years, but it is, it's because it's so impressive that you've barely arrived on campus and already have been empowered to create something new. I can't help but to think and reflect on the fact that you also joined in a pandemic, right? You joined in a time where we haven't even seen all of the typical activities that would be happening in our student organizations and affinity groups. And yet you've already gotten enough of a sense of the kind of campus environment or a feel, and you notice this gap. So I guess I just want to ask two things. One is, Lyndon, you just kind of said in the end about kind of launching this platform for folks of color to come together, which I think is beautiful and wonderful. How can we create an opportunity to really celebrate our successes, and when people are thriving and doing really well, is there space in POCA for that as well? I don't think that it has to be either or, where you can only discuss things that are challenging. I think that is important to also do. But I guess one of the things I'm hoping for, and I hope there's space here maybe, is a place to really just, you all remember from the Genesis class, my motto of taking up space, right? And celebrating who we are in this campus environment. So can you talk a little bit about that?
So I think what a main issue, and taking up space can mean a lot of things, I think. But I think we've already started to do that, like Leslie has said, or has spoken about the POC perspective, and just giving a platform to students who may not want to share their name or who they are, what class they're from, but just to allow them a space to talk about things, and without any sort of repercussion or judgment, to just talk about what they've experienced and give their truth through POCA. And I think that's one way we plan to take up space. I think another way, our team, we're currently working on a bunch of events that we want to have started by the end of February to, celebrate Black History Month and, other great holidays. To also take up space, I think we plan to really just be there for people. I know we have a lot of events on campus already, but we want to have more, and this might not resonate with all people, but low-key events where it's just for people to come together and say, hey, I really had this rough day today, or this week has not been my week because of this, that, and the other. And that's really what we want to be for people of color, not only people of color, but non-POC, to just be a space where, people can sit down, relax, and again, and I'm going to say it again, be unapologetically themselves and say, this is just what's happened to me.
That's wonderful. I am a big fan of low-key. I think we need more low-key.
No, I'm here.
Can I just ask my second one, and then I won't take up so much space? And I guess I would like to know what you all need from us. What do you need from your peers? What do you need from the staff and faculty on campus to make sure that this can be the kind of supportive kind of community or communal space that you want it to be? And it may be too soon to ask this. This is not your one and only time. You can follow up whenever you need to, but what do you think you need right now?
I'm gonna let Janice or someone else answer that question. I want to give everybody,
I think, especially because, like you guys keep mentioning, we are first years, and sometimes it can be really hard to try to gather as many people as possible, because I think that, like mentioned before, we're first years, and when your first years, honestly, you kind of don't have a reputation to start off on. That's what you build off on for the next 4 years. That's what you do in college. You join sports, you join teams, you join clubs, the classes that you take, the people that you talk to, it all kind of builds up as to how you get your name out there. And I think that the same thing is with POCA. It's like a little baby we just started, and part of it is trying to get it to share as much as possible, even if it's just somebody looking at our Instagram page one day and being like, oh, that looks cool, and never deciding to follow. Something like that, as small as that, helps, because one way or another, we're getting our word out. And regardless of how many people join or how many people are interested, we want to just show people that we're here, we're on campus, and we want to share our message as lively as possible, basically, because especially coming in as a first year, you don't know what to do. I mean, depending on where you're from or what it's like I'm from New York City, and this is my first time experiencing anything like this. So it can definitely be a big change, and we just want to show people that we're here to help you transition, especially to the new incoming freshmen that are coming next years and years after that, just to spread our word as much as possible. Even if you share our Instagram post here and there, or be like, hey, this was cool, like something as small as that. We talk through social media all the time, especially because of the pandemic, and that's our main way of getting through. Seeing Connecticut College has their own Instagram, and we see things posted there all the time. So social media is perfect for us, basically.
Thank you, Junice. I believe that Ciara McNamara had a question. She raised her hand.
No, sorry, I didn't have a question. I was just clapping.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. President Bergeron, I think you had a question.
I think you're on mute, President.
We cannot hear you.
Well, those were the most brilliant comments, and you'll never hear them again. But I wanted to, I do have a couple of things I wanted to ask, and beginning with a lot of praise for what you're doing. I think this is fabulous. So two things that you're talking about. One is, in my mind, I just realized how old-fashioned I am, that whenever we talk about getting together, even though we're in a pandemic, I keep thinking about physical spaces, you know. And I know that that's not completely off limits, but when you talk about low-key events, you know, do you think about activating Unityhouse in some new ways? So that's a one general question. And then the second, and I'm just going to ask them both, and you can just talk about them in any way. I love the idea of this being a space for helping to bring first-year students into the community in a more comfortable way. And we're thinking a lot about that now. We're thinking a lot about how we evolve. And Genesis, as you know, has already evolved in the last couple of years. So you're experiencing, as first-year students, a different version of this. I know Maurice is going to take this in a whole new direction, but I just wonder if you've already thought about the role that POCA can play in pre-orientation and the orientation as we think about bringing in new students for next year. So you take those in any or no order.
I just want to answer the second question first, because I found that very interesting. We just recently had a communications committee meeting where we decided we really wanted to reach out to the incoming freshmen. I know we're still freshmen and we've only had one semester, but we've already noticed that Con has been welcoming a group of new freshmen. And so we decided it's our duty as a group of freshmen who created this organization to really reach out to the incoming freshmen. And so we've been seeing a lot of comments and communications from the incoming freshmen and follows via social media to our Instagram they're really noticing that we're trying to reach out to them. And I think in regards to pre-orientation, that's not something we thought of, but it would be amazing to be a part of, to help, you know, the incoming freshmen to figure things out. You know, it's a difficult transition, as we all know, to get into college and to just be a part of this new community. And I think we as an organization would love to be a part of that transition. I don't know if anybody on the panel wants to answer the first one.
Well, I want to add on to that. Mentioning Genesis, I think that helped a lot as a freshman. I'm a first gen, and I literally knew nothing about college. I always knew that I had to go to college, but I didn't know anything. So that was very helpful coming in and having pre-orientation, having Genesis to help me out. And I think POCA is helping me know things that I wouldn't know where to ask. And I think we're starting stuff like about scholarships and like mental health for people of color as well, so they can have not easier access, but know where to look when they don't know where to ask. And I know Con does a very good job telling us where to look, but sometimes you're ashamed of asking for help. So you can easily go in and look for it. I guess that's something. But I think that's all I have to say about that. So yeah.
I want to answer the first question, and I think in regards to Unityhouse, POCA's very happy to use any resources that we're given, and that's really what we want to do. We want to use the resources available to us and create new resources for other people. But also, I noticed that there are some questions in the chat, so yeah. So the first one is, how are the kudos and the issues of exclusion shared with the administration? Is there a direct link? And of course, anonymous, but with specifics, so the uncomfortable situation can be, I'm sorry, I'm probably going to butcher this word, ameliorated. I think, I'm not really sure how to answer this question, I'm going to be honest, but I think, yeah, it is important to make sure everybody's comfortable on campus. And I think but also for issues like this to be given to like administration, I feel like sometimes people have trouble asking for help, like Leslie just said, but like also it should be their choice whether or not they want to go to administration. So I'm not really sure about that. I think that's something that we'll have to work on further and think about further as we move on. And then the second question is, can you elaborate on some of the ways you would like to work with other affinity groups? I'm thinking specifically about the athletes of color collation that I get the chance to work with. I'm gonna let somebody else answer that.
Actually, Janice, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that I feel like the more people that we work with, the better. Honestly, we're here to get as much help as possible, and not just for ourselves, but to help others. This means in any sort of way with events, any sort of advice, things like that. I feel like that's the most important part, and that's honestly what POCA is all about, trying to bring together as many people as possible. And we're very aware that there's other affinity groups on campus that we would love to work with and speak to at some time, because I feel like we said, we're newbies at this, and as much help as possible, as much advice as possible is more than encouraged. And it's just something that as people on campus who are trying to start something new would just go off and show that like, oh, people are willing to help us and helps to push us forward, because sometimes it can be hard. It can be a little bit stressing at times when you have school and life, and especially with the pandemic, and we're all away from home. It can be a lot to try to juggle along with trying to start off something new at campus. So working with affinity groups is something that we'd love to do anytime.
Definitely. I just also want to comment on those two questions. In regards to the POC perspective, I think it serves as a good way for the college to look at it in that sense and use it as constructive criticism, and say, okay, so this is what's going on and this is what some students are experiencing, and implement that into whatever programs or things that they plan to do in the future. Like Francis said, that's something we'll continue to work on to give more, I guess, ways to figure it out. But it's work in progress. Like Junie said, we're newbies at this. And I just also wanted to say, in regards to other affinity groups, I found it very interesting that you brought up Athletes of Color Coalition, because our other executive secretary, Serena Prince, she's currently working on scheduling a meeting during the first 2 weeks of quarantine to reach out to them so we can bounce ideas off of each other, as I know they recently just started. So I think it would be a great opportunity for both of our organizations to figure things out together and, you know, come up with ways where we can collaborate. I know there was a question in the chat. This is Leslie Fenn from the class of '69. As a retired lesbian physician who's benefited from white privilege, one of my commitments to reparations has been to focus on my donations on scholarships for students of color. Are there other ways that those of us with similar interests can support you and POCA? Well, thank you for the support. This is beyond exciting for me, I have to say.
Can I actually jump in and kind of answer that for Leslie? Because, you know, there are some initiatives that we are actually organizing through our Office of Advancement to support the Division of Institutional Equity and Inclusion. And I know that you are a student group, but you are in a way already affiliated with the division as student leaders. So I think that how I would answer you, Leslie, is to say that this is something that is underway and we should be in conversation with Kim Verstandig and others, and John even. I do know that I don't know whether you know this, but this year an alum just gave a very, very generous gift that was dedicated specifically to a fund to support institutional equity and inclusion. And so I think that there could be aggregate funds that then can help to support your organization as it gets off the ground.
Thank you, President Bergeron, for helping us with that question. I wanted to give Acacia a moment to give a question. I think I see her hand is raised. If not, we can come back to you.
Raise your hand. Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, yep.
Can y'all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And see me? Okay, cool. So, hello everyone. My name is Acacia. I'm currently a junior at Con. And I just had like a quick question because I'm kind of curious about like the name of the group. So I know that like this past summer, like BIPOC was like a huge shift, and I guess like acronyms and referring to people of color. So I'm just curious as to like why POCA instead of BIPOCA for the name of the group.
So I do know that BIPOC has been a huge thing over the summer. It's been, you know, the talk of the town, and that it's, you know, the new POC. And I think early October, when I was really thinking about this idea, I wasn't really thinking of BIPOC. I wasn't necessarily even thinking of POCA at the time. I was just thinking of sort of just a name to bring people together. And I thought of POC because it was very much a discussion that we were having in Genesis. I think when we were coming together, trying to build our executive board, we also decided that as communities of color, we tend to separate ourselves in already small communities where we, you know, just aren't completely represented. And to then separate ourselves within the name just doesn't seem cohesive with the mission that we stand for. So that's where we decided to just go with POC, people of color, and just not generalize, but, you know, bring every person of color together. I do know and understand the significance of BIPOC, but we wanted to make it as generalized and inclusive as possible. And again, we didn't want to really split any communities throughout with our name. That's just not what we stand for. Junice, did you want to say anything on that? No? Okay, I saw you said something in the chat. Yes, I see another question.
Can we just jump in or should we raise our hand?
Yeah, you can just jump in.
Okay. Hi, how is everyone? Um, I think this is great work, and I want to say that for freshmen, you guys are doing an excellent job. I was the one that asked the question about being able to, ooh, you guys can't see me, can you? Oh. To how do you get the issues to the administration? Because it's, you want to feel comfortable on campus, and many times, and especially with the BIPOC that happened over the summer, the administration was sort of not shocked, but didn't know the magnitude to which people were feeling uncomfortable. So the only way to make the space comfortable is to get the administration to know what's going on. And you don't have to send people to them, but is there sort of like a direct link where you're either talking to Maurice or to John McKnight or someone and saying, these are the feelings and the situations that make us feel uncomfortable on campus so they can address it?
I think because we are an affinity organization, we are under the umbrella of DIEI, and I think we can definitely usher any concerns that we have to either Maurice or Dean McKnight. I also want to say that since we are doing this, you know, people are starting to learn more about POCA and know that POCA is a thing. The community at Con, as well as the administration, I'm sure will be paying close attention to what we'll be doing, and we'll be seeing the things that we either post about people's experiences, and again, taking note of that. So yeah, thank you for the question.
I'd also like to add on that because I would like to assume that most of us in POCA, or almost all of us, did do that Genesis class. I can easily say that that class lifted a weight off my shoulders, and because of how it was being taught, I have that much more confidence in feeling like I could go to Maurice or Dean McKnight about any situations that might be going on for me, myself. And I feel like because Genesis did it quite a presentation on us as first years, it was really easy to kind of feel comfortable in campus. It wasn't like some sort of, I don't know, Genesis wasn't a class where I was trying to paint like a pretty picture of like, this is what happens. Like, no, like we know what all goes on in different people's lives. And I think that because of that, many of us in POCA feel like we would have easy communication when it comes to stuff like that. And it definitely made the impression and message that they're more than willing to listen to us if we feel like there's something that we need to bring up to them, and there's confidence in any sort of change that we might need to happen. Yeah.
Can I just hop in there really quickly? Yeah, thanks for the love, right, for the Genesis course. We did some phenomenal work, just community building all together, and just kind of following up on Dr. Lois's question around, which really speaks to building bridges, right? Building bridges between students of color, BIPOC students, and the administration, right? And I think that right in the Genesis class, we talk so much about the importance of culture, right? Building the culture that we want to see on the campus, and seeing all members of the community as part of that culture, right? So it's genuinely, and I continue to encourage you all to see the administration as part of the solution, right? If you have ideas, if you have ways in which the institution can be better, sit at the table, have meetings, right? Hold conversations with these folks, because there's no disconnect, right? The only disconnect that we see is made up, right? Within ourselves, there's no disconnect. So within this time, right, I really encourage you all, right, from the kind of seeds that were planted in the Genesis class, to be front runners for that narrative, right? That there are no bridges between students and administration, and how we see ourselves and how we can communicate how we feel, right? Always feel welcome and like you have the place to talk to other camels, right? We're all on the same team, no matter if you're an alum, no matter if you're a parent, we're all on the same team, trying to make Con the best institution that it can be, right? And we all play a role in that, right? So I just commend you all for this initiative. And I do have a quick question that I'm curious to see, have you all begin to kind of think about, right? So much of what you all want to do is create inclusive spaces, right? For folks, despite racial backgrounds, right? Ethnic backgrounds, you want to create a space for us to have these real, genuine conversations, right? That can be challenging, that can be tough, right? But at the same time, builds, though in those moments of difficult conversation is where real community is built, right? So how have you thought about, right, the difficult nature of those conversations and the information that could be presented, but doing it in a way that doesn't make people feel, despite where you are, right, doesn't make people feel like they can't come to the table to not only participate, but also be challenged, right? It's all about creating inclusive spaces. So how have you all kind of thought about that kind of tough dichotomy that can be created?
I just want to say something about that. As well, in social media, I run the social media page, but we have weekly meetings where we discuss about topics that we will be talking about, and some of them, at some point, we do feel iffy about. We're like, is this gonna sound weird? But we try our best to make it sound like we're not blaming anyone. We're not saying anything. We're just trying to share what happens to us. So I think it's a difficult conversation because people can take it the wrong way. And I personally, if I put myself in other people's shoes, I would also take it the wrong way if I saw it. So we have to think about tone and the way that we're putting it out there. But at the end of the day, if we don't talk about these topics, then I don't think we can educate others on how this minor thing that people can see as just an everyday thing can affect someone's life in unexpected ways. So it's very difficult. I didn't really think I was going to be like talking about these things I knew I was going to talk about these things in college, but because everything stays on social media for a long time, it's very tricky to do that. But I think the more you learn, the more you can ask questions and the more you can see new perspectives. And I think Dean McKnight had talked about this in Genesis, or well, overall, when we have conversations, that con is that space where they want different ideas, where they want people to speak up. So I guess this is a way to do that, where even if you have a contrary idea, you can still be heard because everybody has different experiences and perspectives. So that one comment can change everybody else's, and you can see, well, I never thought about that. So I think that's something that we should take into consideration, that because we have different experiences, everybody has to be heard.
Definitely. I mean, I think, like you said, Dean, Maurice, that it's a difficult thing to talk about uncomfortable situations and uncomfortable topics. It's been definitely something we've been exploring over the past, I don't know, it's been a couple of months now since we've been doing this. But it's definitely something that we're exploring. I think the first thing we plan to do when we get back on campus is to host a welcome event to kind of share our expectations and what we plan to do when it comes to POCA, and share the fact that in a comfortable way that, you know, this is a space where we can talk with each other, but as well as challenge each other together and say, you know, and really talk about experiences that we have, and some might be a bit uncomfortable to really face. White privilege, just, you know, topics like that, and the truth, as I see someone said in the chat, just really to talk about our truth and, you know, the truth. So it's difficult, but we plan to do it.
You know, I actually have one more quick question. I'm sorry. Do you all have more you want to present? Or is this kind of just question?
Nope, just question
Okay,
and answer.
Cool. So I'm also kind of thinking, right, as the director of race and ethnicity, also in collaboration with the work that you all are trying to do, right, this shift between continuing to have BIPOC students or folks of color in general continue to express their stories and narratives, right, about their traumas, right? And shifting that to actually giving tools and resources for healing, right, from those traumas. And from the things that we've kind of inherited, but also have gone through in our lives, right? No matter who you are, you've gone through some things in your life that causes you to have certain traumas in your life, right? And I think that oftentimes for BIPOC students, it presents the opportunity, let us tell our story. Let us tell you how things have impacted us, right? But when can we begin to shift the conversation between like, okay, we've expressed that, but now we want to heal from those things, right? And begin to grow and develop. So what are your thoughts on kind of just healing for BIPOC students in general, and how POCA can be a vehicle for that?
Well, I think that the fact that we started POCA is honestly an example of that. When we were in Genesis talking a lot about these issues that we find, and we would honestly talk our truth, and there was nobody ever holding back in anything. It was always like definitely reassuring at the end of the day that you could talk to somebody about it, but then there's always the question of, okay, well, what now? I spoke about it, but that didn't change it. That didn't change what happened. It still happened. And the experiences that I had, just because I want to talk about it and share what it was, doesn't change that other people may be acting a different sort of way or may think a different sort of way. So I feel that because we started POCA is one of those examples. We didn't want to stay quiet about it, and we felt like just because Genesis ended didn't mean that our experiences had to as well. So I think because we were all able to come together from where we come from, our background, our identity, our experiences, we're able to start something where we feel more than confident about, just because we feel like if we can relate to it, other people definitely can. And it's not just going to be BIPOC, but it's going to be all types of people. Because one way or another, we all come down to being a person who's trying to live, trying to go around and live their life as normally as possible. And unfortunately, some of us may have some other obstacles than others are not having in their lives. So I feel like because of POCA, we're just able to continue on with that story and kind of build off on that. And if we can bring along other students within the ride, then it's something that honestly will come very natural at some point to start to speak about these experiences and find a way to change them. So yeah.
I also wanted to add on and say that I think the first step for healing is always having that conversation. I think, and then the next step is to really be able to teach ourselves how to celebrate each other and celebrate the experiences that we've had, and not really use them as something that dampens us, but embrace them and say, you know, I went through this, but now I'm moving on. And, you know, and celebrate each other and our experiences and our culture. And I think those are the two main ways to just cultivate healing in our communities. I just want to also answer the question in the chat. So yes, hopefully we will be on Conquest. Come the 8th, we are going through the process of becoming a registered organization. So hopefully that, fingers crossed, hopefully that goes through well. And then I believe in the process, we do get a Conquest page and all of those lovely things. But yes, hopefully sometime in the beginning of this semester, we will be on Conquest.
I wanted to add, sorry, I've been having trouble trying to unmute myself because it says you can't unmute. Thank you, Maurice. So I'm the event coordinator for POCA, and I wanted to answer a couple of the questions that we just had that was talking about like these uncomfortable conversations and how do we heal and how do we provide the space for people to talk about these issues. And I think one of those ways is acknowledging the nuances of our stories, right? I think as people of color, as all people, we have very nuanced and complex stories. And oftentimes when we talk about the the BIPOC experience, it's very one-dimensional. I think that, you know, a part of what POCA is trying to do is to unite people of color across campus and allow people to be allies for people of color. And in order to do that, you have to hear these stories and experiences that we have. So just because, you know, even I'm Mexican American, just because I am Mexican American, it does not mean that I'm going to have the same experience as the Mexican American that may be in my class. We come from different backgrounds, we may have different experiences. It's very nuanced, right? Something that comes with being a person of color is, you know, the trauma of being a person of color, really, you know, of having to fight for your right to have human rights. And so it just makes these stories and experiences very complex and nuanced. So yeah, so it's really about, you know, holding, how do we hold this space for people? How do we heal? It's going to be uncomfortable. I think because we're a very new organization, a very new club, I think things are just going to have to be taken day by day. You know, we may have plans for how we want to handle certain situations, how to handle difficult conversations, but at the end of the day, we're all human beings. And you can't really plan. Human beings have a tendency to be very spontaneous, sometimes irrational. So, you know, you can't really plan for these kinds of situations. I think it's really just taking things day by day. And once we start building our organization, we're going to see different things that we need. I remember Dean McKnight had asked us, you know, what is something that we need as a new club? And I think that's going to change every day. That's the exciting part of being POCA, is that we're so new. So there's so many different things that we get to handle and balance. And that's one of the exciting things, is that we get to, you know, we get to handle people really. How do we unite people? So yeah, I think that it's going to be exciting. I'm very excited for POCA. There's just so many things to plan. There's so many things to do. There's so many ideas. And, you know, I think it's been great so far. So yeah, I think that that's going to be the most difficult part of POCA, is handling these difficult conversations. It's going to be very, you know, so many new things. That's what I wanted to add. I just wanted to kind of put in my perspective, especially as the event coordinator. I think about these things often, right? So how do we handle, you know, different kinds of identities? How do we uplift these spaces for different identities, especially if I'm not of that identity? You know, how do we handle these spaces? So I think about that often as the event coordinator, because that's what I'm doing all the time, is handling people.
Definitely. I also want to say, well, one, thank you, Xenia, for that. We do also have some other members of our executive board here if they want to jump in and share their experiences so far. I also just wanted to point out one thing, that most organizations, besides SGA is a whole different, you know, situation, but most organizations are just the executive board and then their members. I think one thing we wanted to do in the beginning was to give other students an opportunity to be a part of the decision making and to be a part of the planning. And therefore we created committees. So Xenia has her own committee, as well as some other members of the executive board, to kind of just give people that opportunity to plan and share their opinions on how POCA should be going and the direction that we should be taking. So just wanted to put that out there for anyone who's interested in joining but don't know how. So yeah. If anybody has any other questions, if any other executive board members have anything to say, I know that, again, there are a few of us. So if we haven't heard from any, you can share your experiences, thoughts, and yeah.
There's a question in the chat that I want to answer, because I went to a private school for high school, and I just think that coming from like public school to like private school, and it being a PWI, I think there's a lot of things that you wish you were prepared for, but also it's not easy to prepare for certain things, because things change day by day, and also you don't ever know what's going to happen. So some days might be like smooth sailing, you're not really noticing what's going on. And then other days you're very aware of your race and how that compares to other people around you. I will say this, coming from, I think, coming from my high school, and this being the first time that my friend group is predominantly people of color, I think that's really nice. And I think that I wish that like I had done the same thing in high school. And I think that's important because I feel like my high school didn't have like places where like you were able to meet with other people of color and connect and talk about your experiences. And I think that's why POCA is really important, because sometimes people might be feeling alienated and they don't have that resource. I know in high school it was very hard for me because a lot of the people I surrounded myself with were white, and I didn't really have that connection to talk to people about what I was going through, about like, or like different things that I was doing at home. Like, it's just important for us to be able to connect with each other and talk about these things. And I think that's why like Genesis, things like Genesis and POCA are important. That's really.
Never mind.
We all unmuted. Go, when do you go? Oh, I'm the only one. Okay, sorry. I'll go. I was just, I was gonna mention that I also feel like when coming to a PWI, like Francis said, like you can't prepare for everything, but I feel like the most important part of it is that it's predominantly, which means for the most part, it's dominated, but it doesn't mean that just because it's a PWI, you aren't gonna find other people that you can relate to and talk to. And honestly, it's like we mentioned, classes like Genesis, groups, affinity groups that campus has allows you to find other people, even when you feel like you may not be able to find anybody at all. You honestly end up finding more people than you think. And I think that from coming from New York City and being in public schools all the way up to high school, where literally everybody in my campus was either Hispanic, Latino, or Black. That was the predominant community that I grew up in. And I think that having the complete opposite of that, it just taught me kind of like what the real world is going to end up looking like, because that's not just because you grew up in a certain place doesn't mean that that's how it's going to look like, for the rest of your life. So being a PWI just makes you realize the people that you surround yourself with and what to do with that. So, yeah.
Well, I know we are running out of time, but I do want to say thank you guys so much for the support. We weren't expecting so many people. We were constantly texting and we were just like, wow, there's a lot of people and a lot of support. But thank you all for just being here and listening to us. This is something very important to us. And I think something that's needed, not only in Con, but just in general. So thank you again.
Awesome. Let's take a moment to give all of our presenters a round of applause for their first conference. I couldn't imagine presenting at a conference my first year. Oh no. But you all literally are setting a standard. I continuously say how impressed I am of you all. So continue to do the work to transform the campus, to allow it to be what you want it to be. And we are all here to help and support you in whatever way you need it. So go forth and do the work. And in closing, I'll ask two things. One, if you could please fill out the evaluation. That way we can get feedback to our presenters today so that they can continue, as they continue to present for conferences, they can think about ways to continue to improve as presenters. And then lastly, I ask that all of the e-board members from POCA, if you all could hang on after the call is over, we want to kind of just take a group photo to commemorate this moment with you all, if you all are comfortable with that. All right. For everyone else, thank you all so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing and hearing from you all soon.